right at the beginning of this year, we talked specifically around hybrid. What are the key issues around that? And from a LACE perspective, we talked about this thing called the silver bullets. And Tim, you've obviously written a 3-part series on it. So can I just get your reflections on that kind of that narrative that we kind of were talking to the market about, based on the conversations that we had with those CPOs?
Yeah, and I'm a big skeptic of silver bullets. I've been around for a long time, and I've rarely seen them in business. But I did pose the question in the three-part piece on hybrid, which is that, has hybrid working emerged as potentially a silver bullet for solving productivity issues? We've been in stagnant people productivity around the world for over 10 years now, something economists are pretty stumped about. And it was really interesting that the pandemic seemed to break, in a good way, bad habits that we had created around where people work, how they work, when they work. And it seems to have just created a new way of doing it, overnight and all around the world. And it's really interesting that before the pandemic, there was a fantastic study done by Nicholas Bloom at Stanford. So between 2016 and 2018 studied, does hybrid working improve productivity, right? And it was very interesting that this is before the pandemic. He had clear data that showed, that they studied over 2 years, that showed that people productivity in organizations that adopted hybrid working went up pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
So that was before the pandemic. So during the pandemic, you had Putacor Group do measurements of how is productivity faring in the pandemic. Again, it showed that people's productivity was actually going up, right? So this working from home and having hybrid and flexible hours was having a big impact. And then the CIPD did a study after the pandemic last year and showed the same thing. Companies reporting over and over again their productivity has gone up.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting early this year, 2023, we're going to see hard data that shows that over the past 2 years, people productivity is actually starting to increase now after 10 years of stagnant. And so I kind of put the point forward in the series, which is, maybe we've stumbled onto accidentally a silver bullet around productivity. It remains to be seen, but I certainly think the data is very strong to show that we found something kind of almost accidentally that could be fixing this problem for us. So
yeah, it's very interesting, that link between that productivity and the hybrid. Chris, any thoughts on that?
I was just going to say, Tim, you've seen lots of different CEOs come out with different comments.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you that the data is saying, that the productivity is there or getting better. Definitely there's different workforces that makes it slightly harder to do.
Yeah.
Why do you think certain, like Goldman Sachs or Elon Musk, and there's actually a growing list of people that, some of whom are, even I would have said were more, open to listening to their employees, etc., who are demanding, you come in on certain days, or so the hybrid nature or the flexible nature for many companies seems to be disappearing as well.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're going against all of the evidence?
Yeah. Well, the companies you named and then other companies I'm thinking of, when you look at how they're structured, they're command control hierarchies. And hierarchies need that kind of, you need to be at the office. Yeah. Now, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but largely the companies that I'm seeing in industries, so for instance, law firms, initially tried to get everybody to come back and people rebelled against that, and law firms had to back off that kind of traditional command control. So I think that's what you're seeing, is those traditional command control types of companies, cultures are asserting control. And I think they're finding, and I've seen some data that's showing that people are leaving those organizations, and some of those organizations are starting to reflect on that. So I think the kind of, the horse is bolted, and it's whether you're going to get on it or you're going to try to sort of shy away from it. So we'll see how it goes, but I think this is a real inflection point in terms of how we are going to work going forward. And I suspect some of these more command control hierarchical organizations are going to have to find some way to adapt to this because they have very large workforces. So.
Yeah. I don't want to cut you out of this, Alice, so I just wanted to get some reflections on that kind of hybrid approach, maybe what you're seeing from some of the clients that we speak to, but it doesn't have to be the clients as well, just colleagues that you've spoken to, friends, things like that, the different approaches that we're seeing around hybrid, what's working, what's not working.
It's an interesting debate, particularly the clients that I'm currently working with or worked most recently. I still think they're kind of in a mix of not knowing which way to go, particularly around, obviously we've come off the back of the pandemic now, and they're still trying to have that structure and control and dictating, 2 days in the office, 3 days at home. And actually they haven't gone back to what as a business are we trying to solve for? What are the activities? Where should they be distributed? How can that be done in a different way? Because then it accesses you to, potentially a larger talent pool, a different way of doing business, innovation, and as Tim said, productivity.
Yeah. Do you know what's really interesting? Just a quick sort of anecdote. Yesterday, I was in our office at Lace Partners, and I've got a friend on a different floor because we're on multiple floors. And he said to me, "Do you want to pop up for a coffee?" And I said, "Yeah, fine. I don't drink coffee, but I'll have a water, but it's fine." And he said he showed me around the office, and I walked around this office, and it was just big empty spaces, but like occasionally there was seats like these just randomly plonked in the middle. And I thought that was fascinating. I asked him about it, and he said, "Yeah, well, we did used to have banks of desks when everyone was told to come in, but then we decided we don't need those desks because everybody's now hybrid working. So let's create collaborative spaces."
Yeah.
And I joked with him, I said, "You've got collaborative spaces with nobody actually doing any collaboration, mate." And he said, "Yeah, we haven't really thought through that, but can I just get any thoughts from that perspective, Chris?" I'm just going to go to you on that.
So I think there's a couple of different points there. I think a lot of this is going back to basics, and I really do. And I think the pandemic, to me, on so many different levels, has forced us to question things, to ask, should we do things in different ways? Should the workplace be different? Should the way we do work be different? I think the biggest thing to me, for the first time probably in history, is the ball is in the employee's court. So you'll hear the term employee agency a lot, and I think that's truly happened, where it's up to employees to really decide what they want to do. If I look at, for example, our newest, youngest employees, all love coming into the office because they're getting interaction, they're learning from each other, they're learning from working and seeing other people role model. They're also living in a different situation where there might be 5 or 6 of them in the same shared house, where they're sharing the internet, where they can hear the other person on the Zoom or Teams call. We've all developed new skills, and also I think a new set of, okay, I don't have to act in that way. I don't have to do exactly what I did before. I think it's a great mindset shift that's happened in lots of people, and I think that's great.